Thanksgiving has always been loud in the wrong ways. Too much television, too much talking over each other, too much pretending that proximity equals closeness. Still, I cooked the turkey the way my father taught me. Slow, patient, basted like time mattered. The house smelled right. Sage, butter, something sweet just beginning to burn. The smell of effort. 12 of us around the table, family, technically. Plates warm, glasses filled. Someone halfway through grace, already thinking about football. I stood at the head of the table with the carving knife in my hand. The weight of it familiar. Good steel, balanced, a gift I'd bought myself years ago after a promotion I never celebrated. The blade caught the overhead light and threw it back at me in a clean line. That's when Marcus cleared his throat. My son has a way of doing that, clearing space before he speaks, like the room belongs to him by default. He lifted his glass, wine sloshing dangerously close to the rim, and smiled, not at me, at the table, at the audience. "Can we be honest for a second?" he said. "A few people laughed already. That should have warned me." He turned then, finally, and looked straight at me. "If Dad disappeared tomorrow, what would we actually miss?" The pause was deliberate, long enough to land, long enough to hurt. Besides his money, I mean. The laugh came fast. Too fast, relief laughter, permission laughter. Someone to my left, my cousin, I think, snorted into his napkin. Someone else added, "He's basically a walking account balance." "An ATM in shoes," another voice said. Silverware clinked against china, phones tilted, subtle but obvious, hungry for reactions. Someone said, "Damn," like they were grating a joke. I didn't move. The knife stayed in my hand. The bird steamed quietly beneath it, skin tight and shining, like it had done its part without complaint. Marcus wasn't done. Seriously, he said, raising his glass higher now. "Let's toast the bill-paying appliance." More laughter, louder this time. I looked around the table. 12 faces, not one of them meeting my eyes. They stared at the gravy boat, the centerpiece, their own thumbnails. The room smelled like food and something else. Contempt, maybe. That lazy kind you reserve for furniture that squeaks. I could have followed the light of the blade into a speech. I felt it there, waiting. The years lined up neatly in my head like receipts, early mornings, late nights, hands sore from carrying weight without complaint. Teaching Marcus to throw without snapping his elbow, counting to 10 at the free-throw line, driving him to practice in a truck that rattled and sang because we couldn't afford quiet yet. I could have reminded them who I was. Instead, I set the knife down, not hard, just enough for the board to hear it. The sound wasn't loud, but it cut through the room better than shouting ever could. For half a second, everything paused. The laughter, the chewing, even the television seemed to hesitate. Then someone said, "Lighten up. It's a joke." A nephew, smiling thinly, pity stretched over his grin like plastic wrap. I felt my jaw click, old bone, old habit. Louder to me than the entire table. I folded my napkin carefully, the way you do when you're done pretending. I stood, picked up the gravy boat, and walked it into the kitchen like nothing had happened. Opened the back door. Cool desert air slid along my face, clean, honest. Through the glass, I watched them relax, shoulders dropping, the ripple passing. Marcus tossing out another line to keep the party afloat. The knife lay where I'd left it, a silver slash across the turkey's skin. That's when the question arrived. Not angry, not loud, just precise. When did he stop seeing me? Not the payer, me. When did I become a subscription they forgot to cancel? I went back in, sat down, ate what was in front of me and tasted none of it. When pie came around, I smiled and shook my head. The television erupted over a touchdown. A niece filmed a slow pan of the table, already forming the caption in her head. Family. Grateful. Blessed. After the last goodbye and the front door close, the dishwasher started its familiar hum. The house exhaled the way houses do when the audience leaves. I went to my office, one lamp, one drawer, a duffel bag, a small black book where numbers live, a key I hadn't touched in months. I sat there a long time without moving. I thought about speaking to Marcus, about listing everything like a receipt. Nights, miles, checks, sacrifices. Then I saw his face as he'd wear it. Bored, amused, above it all. The pain settled in heavy and correct. Then it cooled. It didn't shrink. It didn't heal. It hardened. He had raised a glass to my absence. That night, I decided to teach him what it costs to live without me. I didn't leave in anger. That surprised me most. I expected rage to carry me, slam a door, say something unforgivable, make myself the villain they could point to later. Instead, I moved quietly, as if the house were already done with me, and I was just respecting the fact. I left my phone face down on the kitchen counter, still charging. The small white ring glowed around it like a halo you don't earn by accident. One by one, I slid my work keys beside it. Metal on stone. Honest sounds. In the garage, the duffel waited where it always had, thin layer of dust like Time's signature. I packed only what could be replaced and what could not. Passports, the black book, a single envelope sealed years ago and never opened. I didn't need much. I never had. The garage door lifted with a soft chain rattle, careful not to wake anyone. Night air spilled in, cool, dry, clean. The orange tree by the fence carried the faint smell of dust and fruit. I drove without music, at a gas station off the frontage road. I paid cash for a burner phone and a paper map I didn't need. The clerk didn't look up. Outside, a coyote crossed the empty street like a thought best left unspoken. The motel was forgettable in every way that mattered. Beige walls, a desk pretending to be useful, a heater that clicked and sighed like it had stories, but no one to tell them to. I sat on the edge of the bed, shoes still on, jacket zipped, and opened my laptop. The screen glowed blue, making my hands look like someone else's. Autopay, power, water, internet, insurance, streaming. Each toggle asked if I understood the consequences. I did. Gray, gray, gray. Next were the cards. Authorized users. Marcus's name appeared, casual as a nickname. I removed it. The system asked why. I typed account maintenance and changed the pins anyway. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel relief. I felt alignment. Gratitude, I realized, isn't taught by speeches or raised voices. It's taught by absence, by cold rooms, by quiet. Before closing the laptop, I turned off notifications. The last message read, "You will no longer receive alerts." Good, neither would they. Outside, a truck passed on the highway, tires whispering over asphalt. Somewhere across town, my house slept, warm without knowing why. I lay back fully dressed and stared at the ceiling until the heater's rhythm matched my breathing. By morning, the lesson would begin teaching itself. Consequences rarely arrive all at once. They come in pieces, like weather. Small shifts you don't notice until you're standing in the wrong clothes. The first payment failed on Monday. I didn't see it. I didn't need to. Autopilot had been cut, and systems don't panic when they lose a hand. They just stop moving. Somewhere, an orange warning box appeared on a screen no one in my house checked. By Tuesday, a white envelope waited on the front door. I parked a block away beneath a jacaranda tree and watched. Marcus stepped outside barefoot, coffee mug still in his hand. He squinted at the paper, tore it down as if the act itself might fix something, then stood there holding it, limp and useless. He made a call, paced, looked toward the garage like it might still be a vault. That night, I drove past again. The kitchen window usually threw a yellow square onto the gravel. It didn't. The house looked paused, like someone had pressed a button and walked away. By Thursday, the truck came. Utility logos don't mean anything until they're yours. The man parked with no hurry, clipboard tucked under his arm, moving with the calm of someone whose job doesn't care about family history. Marcus burst out the door, shirt half buttoned, hands already lifted. I couldn't hear the words, but I knew the shape of them. The worker nodded the way you nod when you've heard the same question all morning. Then came the click, soft, almost polite. Inside the house, the refrigerator stopped humming. That low, faithful sound you only notice when it's gone. Marcus stood still, turned slowly, looked at the windows like the light might return out of embarrassment. I pulled away before he could look down the street. My hands were steady on the wheel, the ick sat where it belonged. Heavy, correct, not loud. That night, I parked across from a glass-fronted building lit like an aquarium and watched my son badge into a night shift job. A lanyard hung from his neck. He hesitated half a heartbeat at the turnstile, then went through. Rent, I'd learned, asks different questions than pride. On my screen, I watched him learn scripts, how to sound calm when people panic, how to apologize without promising what you can't give. He slipped once, shared a tasteless joke in a private chat. HR flagged it. A yellow triangle blinked beside his name. Not a disaster, just gravity reminding him it exists. When his shift ended, he came back out slower, shoulders slightly curved, like the day had leaned on him longer than expected. He stood for a moment under the lights, staring at his phone as if it might explain something. It wouldn't. Learning rarely does. I started the car and drove away. The lesson wasn't finished. It had just begun to speak. He didn't call first. That told me more than anything else. I was parked across the street from the building again, engine off, windows cracked just enough to let the heat escape. The night had that tired stillness it gets after midnight, when even the city sounds like it's listening. Marcus stepped out under the fluorescent lights and stopped when he saw me. No surprise, no relief, just recognition, sharpened into anger. He walked straight over, phone already in his hand. Not to call, to record. The black glass caught my face and threw it back at me, pale and older than I felt. "You're not broke," he said. No greeting, no pause. "You shut everything off while you're paying strangers' bills through some trust." I didn't answer right away. Silence does better work when it isn't rushed. Our lights went out. He went on. You watched it happen. I watched you toast my disappearance, I said. My voice sounded steady, even to me. You asked for a life without me. He laughed, short and brittle. You think this is some kind of lesson. I think respect isn't optional, I said, and I don't finance contempt. He stepped closer. Anger does that, tries to shrink the distance. Like proximity will force agreement. His phone stayed raised, as if proof alone could change reality. You chose strangers over your own family. No, I said. I choose boundaries. The word hit him harder than I expected. He flinched, then recovered, rage sliding back into place. You're hiding money to feel powerful, he said. Open the accounts, transfer what's mine. I shook my head once. Small, final. This isn't a negotiation. He jabbed a finger toward my chest, stopping just short of touching. You're not a father. You're a machine that broke the first time someone questioned it. Maybe that was supposed to hurt. Instead, it clarified. I stopped being an appliance, I said. I became a man who expects to be spoken to like one. A breeze dragged heat across the lot. Somewhere a car alarm chirped and died. People passed us without slowing, choosing their own lives. Marcus waited. He wanted me to soften, to offer something. Money, reassurance, a path back to comfort. I didn't. I opened my door and sat inside. The seal closed with a soft, definitive sound. Through the glass, I saw his mouth move. I didn't need to hear the word. The engine turned over. I pulled away. In the mirror, he stood still, phone lowered now. Anger giving way to something else. Confusion, maybe. The look of a man realizing the world doesn't bend just because he raises his voice. That's when I knew the lesson had landed. Not cleanly, but deeply enough to leave a mark. I ate alone at the diner the next morning. Same booth by the window. Same cracked vinyl seat. The waitress brought coffee without asking and set it down like she trusted it would be used well. Outside, traffic moved the way it always does, indifferent, steady. Inside, the parade played on mute. Balloons drifting through streets I've never loved, smiles doing what the calendar expects of them. My phone buzzed once, an email from Marcus. The subject read, "Let's be adults." That sentence always sounds reasonable until you read what comes after it. Bullet points, demands dressed as logic, screenshots of articles about trusts, as if the law were a lever. Not one word that weighed anything. No apology. No acknowledgement of the glass he raised or the room that laughed. I read it once, then I archived it. Not reply, not forward, not argue. When a door stays closed long enough, the handle forgets your name. The waitress refilled my cup. You doing okay today? She asked, the kind of question people ask on holidays because the date gives them courage. I am, I said, and meant it. Later, I approved a relief case through the fund. An elderly man tricked by a text message. Utilities scheduled for shut-off. Hardship verified. I clicked approve. Somewhere, a heater would keep running. A refrigerator would keep humming. Gratitude wouldn't announce itself. It never does when it's real. Outside, a mother reminded her child to say thank you. He did, softly. Like the word had weight, she smiled, present, not performative. I stood there a moment. A year ago, I was a wallet with a wedding ring. Tonight, I was a man with his own name on the check and his hands clean of an old bargain. Money can keep lights on. Only respect keeps a home alive. I didn't leave to punish anyone. I left to stop disappearing while standing in the room. Love doesn't mean unlimited access. Fatherhood doesn't require accepting contempt as humor. Boundaries aren't walls, they're maps, and the legend is short. Respect or do not enter. I turned toward my car and breathed in the cool desert air. Steady, unremarkable, mine. Behind me, the diner bell rang, and another family stepped inside. I carried something quieter. Dignity doesn't shout. It stays